there, Mama. Welcome back to Rooted in Relationship. I'm Raylee Pierce, PCI certified parent coach. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I want to start by taking you back to when my firstborn, Isabel, was about 9 months old. And I need to tell you about that in terms of it was really, really hard. Isabel only wanted me. And I mean only me. She would only be held by me. She would only be bathed by me. I mean, Glenn would try, but she would cry through the whole thing. And she would only be fed by me. You know, if he tried to play with her, to connect with her, to do any of these things that he was so eager to do as a new dad, she would just cry. And he often thought, she needs you. She needs to nurse or something. I was like, I've nursed her. I've changed her. I bathed her. I need a break. But she would just push him away. She completely, rejected her dad. And it was hard on both of us, right? Glenn wanted so much to connect with his little girl, and he would look at her with all this love in his eyes, and she just wasn't interested. She only wanted mommy. And for me, I was exhausted, touched out, right? Desperately needing a break, but also feeling this strange guilt about being the chosen one while watching Glenn, his little heart break a little bit every day. At the same time, I didn't understand what was happening. I thought maybe we were doing something wrong. I mean, this was our first baby. I had read a lot of books and things, but I knew it wasn't separation anxiety. I just was like, what is going on? Why does she prefer me so strongly over him when he's, playing with her? And they had a great relationship as a newborn-ish, up until that point. So I thought maybe we're just doing something wrong, right? And maybe there was something about their bond that wasn't forming right. Maybe this was a problem we needed to fix. But now, and of course, with my second child, I knew more. I understand that what Isabel was doing was completely natural, and it even has a name. And once I learned about it, everything made so much more sense, not just about that baby season, but about so many of the attachment struggles families face. Maybe you've experienced something like this. Maybe your baby clung to one parent and rejected the other, or maybe you're on the other side now, watching your child drift toward their friends, toward their screens, toward anyone but you. Maybe you're the one feeling pushed away. If any of that resonates, I want you to know there's actually a name for what's happening. And more importantly, there's something we can do about it. Today, we're talking about something Dr. Gordon Neufeld calls competing attachments. What they are, why they're such a big deal in our modern world, and how we can gently, lovingly keep our children close without pulling them apart. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a competing attachment? Here's the thing. Our kids can have lots of attachments, and that's totally fine. They can be attached to grandparents, to teachers, to the family dog, to their favorite stuffed animal. Having multiple attachments isn't the problem. The problem comes when one of those attachments starts pulling them away from us. When being close to that person or thing means they have to be far from you. So Dr. Neufeld uses this beautiful analogy of a magnet. Now, stay with me here because, I'm not really the science mom or anything, but think back to that experiment you probably did in school with the iron filings and a magnet. Remember how all those little filings lined up in one direction? Or if you had that magnet thing with the hair, with the funny faces, and you could give them hairdos and mustaches and all of that. Okay. Remember those little filings, they line up in one direction. That's because, right, magnetism is polarized. It has a north pole and a south pole. The same force that creates attraction at one end, it creates repulsion at the other. Attachment works the same way. Where our children seek closeness in one direction, they naturally resist closeness in another direction. This isn't bad, okay? This isn't bad. It's actually designed to protect their important attachments. But when peers or other things like screens become their North Pole, guess who becomes the South Pole they're trying to push away? Yeah, it's us. Okay. So back to my little story about Isabel. I mean, she was attracted towards me. I was the North Pole, and Glenn became the South Pole. Because she's still having an attachment with one of us, it's fine, it's healthy, it's normal, it's natural. It's an understanding, and it actually, they mature out of it. They grow out of this polarization. Typically, doesn't mean that they don't necessarily prefer one parent over the other, but it's not so extreme as they grow up. So what we're really talking about is something now when a child, is attracted to other things in the culture outside of us. And that's what I'm curious, to talk about this, because let's just pause here, because I want you to really think about this. When your child lights up at the sight of, let's say, a friend, when your teenager would rather be at their buddy's house or their girlfriend's house more than with you, or when your kids seem to care more about fitting in with their peers than connecting with your family, just curious, how that might make you feel. If you're actually like most parents who I talk to in my coaching practice, you probably think that's normal. That's healthy. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what's supposed to happen. And I get it, because that's what we've been told our entire lives, right? From the moment our babies are born, we're bombarded with message about socialization. We're told our babies need time with other babies, or, as if being with other babies at the daycare or something is healthier for them than to be with their parent at home. We're told our toddlers need play dates to learn how to share. We enroll our preschoolers in programs specifically so they can learn how to, be with other children. We actually worry if our elementary schooler doesn't have a best friend. We're told that our tweens and teens are supposed to prefer their friends over us, that it's a healthy sign of independence. The message is everywhere. Your child needs peers. Socialization is essential. Friends are crucial for development. So, if I'm about to tell you that there might be something wrong with your child being more oriented to their peers than to you, that might feel really strange. It might even feel wrong. But Mama, I need you to hear this, and Dad. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's natural. Just because something is quote unquote normal in our culture doesn't mean it's good for our children. What if I told you that every time we push our children toward their peers, every play date, and oh my goodness, please stop going to multiple birthday parties on a day. They don't need all of these social engagements, but if every play date we schedule because we think they need it, every time we encourage them to go play with the other kids, or we think on the weekends our whole job is to create a social calendar for this little person who's barely 4. Every activity we sign them up for primarily so they can socialize, we might actually be contributing to them orienting away from us. What if the very thing we've been told is that is essential for our children is actually pulling them out of our orbit, right? I know that's a big idea. And I know it's confusing because you're still thinking, I thought that that was okay. I thought that was natural. I thought that's what I want for them to do, is to kind of leave me, right? Leave me in the dust. And so be it. If it's at 3, 4, whatever age. Oh, well, let's think about this. This is very interesting, right? This is very curious. So our ancestors lived in what we might call villages of attachment. I love this story that Neufeld tells about. It comes from the Mayan culture in Guatemala. When a baby was born, the women of the village would gather and they would pass that baby from woman to woman. And each one would nurse the baby. So interesting. Would hold the baby close and they would say, "You're welcome in my home. Here is another mother for you." And here's a fascinating thing about this practice. They did this in those first few months of life before stranger protest kicks in. Remember how I said that around 5 or 6 months, a baby's brain, or even maybe it's closer to 9, but a baby's brain basically says, okay, we have enough attachments now. Well, in village life, they instinctively knew to pass the baby around before that window closed, getting the smells of all those caregivers on the baby, making sure the baby had contact with all the helping hands who would be part of raising them. So when that baby's brain did flip the switch to protect existing attachments, all those village members were already inside the circle, all those moms. The whole village was on the same side of the magnet. Can you even imagine? I mean, a child growing up surrounded by that kind of web of connected adults, all working together, all pointing in the same direction, all holding that child close. So different than what's going on right now. I mean, we've got parents with newborns who won't let anybody come see them until they're like 3, 4 months old. So interesting, so different from our past, our ancestors. And this just gives me goosebumps, though, every time I think about it, because, well, as a Baha'i, this speaks to something I believe so deeply. We were created for community, for connection. There's a beautiful Baha'i principle that says children are a trust given to parents. But I think there's a deeper truth there too, that children were never meant to be raised by just 1 or 2 exhausted adults in isolation. We were designed for villages. But here's our reality. The nuclear family has never been smaller. Sometimes it's just one parent and one child. We're often far from extended family. Our neighbors are strangers. And into that void where there should be aunties and uncles and grandparents and trusted adults, our children's peers have rushed in. Do you see what happened? We lost the village of adults and we replaced it with a village of children. We felt the void, and instead of filling it with more caring adults, we filled it with more peers. We thought, well, at least they have each other. But peers can never fill that role. They can't. They're not equipped for it. When our children turn to other children to get their attachment needs met, it's like trying to fill a cup from an empty pitcher. Those other children are just as empty, just as needy. And so our kids become addicted to peer contact rather than satisfied by it. Always needing more, right? More play dates, more time with their friends, never feeling full. I need to bust a myth here, and it might be a little uncomfortable because this myth is everywhere in our culture. It's in parenting books. It's in what teachers tell us. It's in what well-meaning relatives say. It's probably something you've believed your whole life. The myth is this, that our children are supposed to go from being attached to us to being attached to their peers. That it's normal and healthy for friends to become more important than family. That we're supposed to let go and that they're supposed to find their people. I hear this all the time. Well, it's just the teenage years, are supposed to pull away, or she needs to learn to separate from you. It's not healthy to be so attached to mom. Or he needs more time with kids his own age. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We are often the ones creating this peer orientation in our children. Not on purpose, not because we're bad parents, but because we've been told over and over again that our children need to be socialized. Think about it. We schedule play dates for our babies. We enroll our 2-year-olds in programs so they can learn to play with other kids. We worry if our preschooler is too attached to us. We push our children toward group activities, birthday parties, and sleepovers. We send them to summer camps. We encourage them to go make friends. And then when they're teenagers and they'd rather be with their friends than with us, when they roll their eyes at family dinners, when they seem to care more about what their peers think than what we think, we kind of wonder what happened. We happened. We did exactly what we were told to do, and it backfired. I know you might be thinking, well, did it? I don't know. Like, I just thought this is normal and this is what was supposed to happen. So what do you mean? Why are you saying it's backfiring? Okay. Now, please hear my heart here. I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty. I believed this too. I believed the same things. I'm saying this because understanding how we got here is the first step to doing something different. Here's what we know. This is what research is telling us. The developmental blueprint actually has 3 stages, okay, not 2. First, our children attach to us, their parents, right? They're caring adults. Then, out of that secure attachment, they're supposed to develop a strong sense of self, their own identity, their own values, their own opinions. And then, only then, they're ready for healthy peer relationships. I think of it like this. When our children are full of themselves, full of their own identity, their own sense of who they are, there isn't room for peers to come in and sway them. They can be friends without losing themselves. They can handle peer pressure because they have an internal compass. But when we skip that middle step, when we push our kids toward peers before they've become their own person, they're just transferring their dependence. They're not becoming independent. They're just following a different crowd. They're not following us. They're following this group of immature kids. And here's the really sobering part. When kids take their cues from other kids, when they dress like them and talk like them and think like them and want what they want, that's not personhood. That's just conformity. They haven't found themselves. They've just lost us. Before I share some practical strategies, because I know like this is kind of mind-boggling. It is very different thinking, right? I need to talk about something that's kind of connected to this, I think, because of the social part of it. But I want to talk about shyness, because this is one of the places where our culture really gets it wrong and where I see so much unnecessary pain for both parents and children. If you have a shy child, you know the drill. You've been told 1,000 times that you need to socialize them, that they need more play dates, more peer interaction, more time with other kids to develop quote unquote people skills. Maybe you've been told your child's shyness is a problem that needs to be fixed. Maybe you felt that hot flush of embarrassment when your child hides behind your legs instead of saying hello. Maybe you found yourself apologizing. Sorry, she's just shy. Maybe you've pushed your reluctant child toward other kids saying, go play. And then feeling guilty when they look back at you with that panicked expression. Maybe, and I say this gently, you've even found yourself frustrated with your child. Why can't you just talk to people? Why do you have to make this so hard? You're embarrassing me. If any of this resonates, please just keep listening, because I think what I'm about to share might change how you see your child. I was so shy as a child. And I remember as a child just being absolutely crippled by shyness. I could feel my face like pinching with pain when a teacher would call my name in class. I would always hide behind my mom in social situations when I was little. I didn't want to talk to strangers, and I just wanted to disappear when adults would engage with me. So different than my actual personality today. Although, there's still an element, I think, of shyness for me in crowds of people I don't know. But somewhere along the way, shyness became pathologized in our culture. We started treating it like a disorder, a deficit, something wrong with our children that we need to fix. And we've been told that shy children will have a hard time in life because they won't have these people skills, that they'll never succeed unless we push them out of their comfort zone. So we push. I was grateful my mom did not. She was also shy, so she did not push, thankfully. But in culturally, we cajole, right? We go into a space and we have adults who are like, "Don't be shy," or "Why are you so shy?" And we're really we're harassing these children. We sign kids up for activities, and go to all the parties to bring them out of their shell. And we feel embarrassed by them. Sometimes we even punish them for not being friendlier. But here's what I wish someone, had explained, I think, for more parents to understand earlier than what I'm sharing with you now, so that you would have known this all your whole life. But shyness is not a problem. Shyness is protection. Around 5 or 6 months of age, something amazing happens in a baby's brain. It basically says, "Thank you. We have enough attachments now. Okay. Time to go for depth instead of numbers." And from that point on, the child will naturally resist closeness with people they're not attached to. Hence why Isabel, her deep attachment to me, her attachment had deepened, and she did the polarization. And so she had to resist her dad. And so now with strangers, when it happens with strangers, we know this is called that stranger protest, and it's healthy. It's the brain protecting what matters most. And, when we finally can understand this, it just helps me to see that, Isabel's little brain had attached deeply to me, and that same force that pulled her toward me was pushing her away from anyone else, even her own dad, who loved her so much. It wasn't rejection, guys. It wasn't rejection. It was protection. Her attachment instincts were doing exactly what they were designed to do. And I just wish I had known that then. It would have saved us a lot of heartache, right? If Glenn and I had known that. So when your shy child hangs back, when they don't warm up to new people right away, when they cling to you at parties, when they won't perform for relatives, they're not broken. They're not broken. They're not lacking social skills. They're not going to fail at life. They're preserving their attachments. They're being appropriately cautious with their hearts. So think about it. Do you warm up to strangers immediately? Do you share your heart with just anyone? Typically not. You're reserved for your people. that's all shyness is. It's being reserved for the people who matter. Remember I was an admissions director at a school for 10 years, and there was a little girl who was going through the admissions process, and her mom said she had selective mutism and she didn't talk to anybody but the mother. And that is not a disorder. That is not a pathological problem. That is simply shyness at a deep level, that she was preserving her attachment with her mother. But we tend to go into panic about stuff like this. She's not selectively muted now. She's fine. She grew out of it. So how does it go away? How does shyness go away? I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right? Like I can recognize that I am still shy on some level. And yet if you met me, you might be like, no, you're not. But internally, yes, there's a lot of like hesitancy and things to share myself with others. But as we grow and develop a strong sense of self, the crippling part of shyness decreases. We can act despite our shyness because our own desires and values, they become big enough to move us forward. I care about this material, so I would get up in front of a crowd to share it. My desire to share it is greater than my shyness. So I can stand up and I can give a talk, I can speak to groups, I can meet new people, not because I'm no longer shy, but because I've become enough of my own person that my own goals and my values override my shyness. That's what we want for our kids, right? Not to stamp out their shyness, but to help them become so fully themselves that they can act despite it. So the next time you feel embarrassed by your shy child or tempted to push them toward people they don't know, try this instead. See their shyness as a sign that their attachment instincts are working perfectly. Be proud that their heart is being selective. Trust that as they grow more secure in who they are, rooted in their attachment to you, they'll be able to venture out in their own time, in their own way. Okay, let's get practical because I know you're not here just for theory. You want to know what to actually do. So here are some strategies for diffusing competing attachments. So the first one is you really need to help your child hold on to both. This is the big one. When your child is being pulled between two attachments, whether that's you and a friend, or you and a step parent, or you and their other parent, maybe after a divorce, the answer is not to compete. The answer is to help them hold on to both at the same time. This might be like, I know you love spending time with grandma. I love that she's in your life. You can love both of us. It doesn't have to be either or. For an adopted or foster child, I bet you have your birth mother's beautiful eyes. I'm sure she would be so proud of the person you're becoming, right? You're allowing for that child to honor both their birth mom and be okay with the attachment they're forming with the adopted or fostered parent. You're showing them that closeness to one person doesn't mean distance from you. You're putting yourself on the same side of the magnet. This is not easy to do. Of course, it's not even going to work with a baby, but we're mostly talking about kids, right? We're talking about kids. And number two, bring the competition into the fold. This one takes some courage because it's hard to do, but it's powerful. Like if your child is being pulled toward a friend, or maybe your teenager towards a boyfriend or girlfriend, you want to start collecting that friend. That friend needs to come over, invite them over, get to know them, become connected to the person your child is connected to. When you have a relationship with your child's friend, or with your tween or teens boyfriend, girlfriend, crush person, then they actually you can bring your child back to you instead of taking them away. Number 3, cultivate an attachment in common. So this is really important, especially in times of family strain. Like you want to find that one person, maybe it's grandma, maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's a family friend who can hold on to all the pieces of your family at one time. If you and your spouse are going through a hard time, that person who loves you both and loves your kids becomes an anchor. They're not taking sides. They're holding everyone together. That goes a long way. Number 4, go deeper, not wider. The ultimate protection against competing attachments is depth of connection. The deeper your child is attached to you, not just through being physically close to you, but through knowing and being known, through loyalty, through love, the less vulnerable they are to being pulled away. Peers typically attach at the more surface levels. So they attach through sameness and through being alike, right? But when your child is attached to you at the heart level, that's a bond that can weather a lot, right? So they may dress like their peers, but they're sharing their secrets with you, right? You've got deeper attachment than the peers. Number 5, build your village intentionally. So I know we can't recreate that Mayan village I described. I don't know if we'd even want to, but we can be intentional about building something like that. Who are the adults in your child's life who share your values, who can be aunties and uncles? They don't have to be by blood, but by relationship. Who can your child run to if they can't run to you? And here's the beautiful thing about doing this intentionally. We get to choose. We get to curate a village that fits our family, our values, our way of being in the world. I want to leave you with one more thought, something that's really shaped how my family approaches this. So there are many forces, right, pulling our families apart. Activities, screens are a big one. Screens are the thing that can be between you and your child. Like literally their attachment is to their screen and not to you. Like they don't listen to you, they listen to their screen. So that's a big one. Busy schedules, like overscheduling our kids, thinking they need to have gymnastics and music class and, swimming and going to all the parties. And like, we don't have to have such busy schedules with our children. That's too much peer orientation. That's too much peer time. We have to deepen our relationship and think about, we want this child to be oriented to us, to the mom and the dad, the parents, the caregivers. Also, just, when we think there's so many forces, like even expectations can be a force. And we need to think about what connects us. They're not going to happen by accident anymore. We have to protect what connects us. So growing up in terms of our household, we really tried to create, I would say more of a sacred space at home. Like we didn't have rigid rules, but we really had protected time and traditions that kept us, that kept things at bay. Like we always had family dinner together. We would have movie night, not as strongly as some families, but it was certainly part of our ritual. We had really lovely birthday celebrations with our extended family. We always celebrated our holy days and holidays together, like so many of you I know do. We didn't have, the children did have peer relationships, of course, but we definitely prioritized family over peers more so. So my own children grew up in a household for 10 years in the most critical formative years of their lives with their grandparents. So there were 4 of us as adults in the home with them. And that was really, that really had a huge impact on them and their orientation. So, being able to bake with grandma and sit on grandpa's lap and hear his stories, and like there was just a lot of connection and orientation to these 4 adults in their life. So what this created, this family orientation of how we were a family together, they created a sense of belonging, and they filled our kids up so they weren't so hungry for that filling up somewhere else. So I want you to think about what that could look like for your family. And I want to encourage you not to be looking so strongly at pushing your children toward peers. Your 2-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 14-year-old, your 17-year-old, they don't actually need peers. It's fine that there are peers in their life. But if those peers are actually becoming their North Star, their orientation, that would be a problem. And we don't need to be pushing and pushing and pushing our kids towards these peer relationships. We want to hold them close. There's an amazing book by Dr. Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate called Hold On to Your Kids. And it's all about peer orientation and how we have a problem right now in North America, I'm sure in other developed countries as well, that we think that this is the way to go and we're losing our kids. So if you take nothing else from today, I want you to just hear this. The pull you feel, that fear of losing your child to their friends, to their screens, to anything that seems to matter more to them than you, it's real. It's not in your head. It's not your fault. We're living in a world that makes competing attachments almost inevitable, but we're not helpless. We can be intentional. We can go deeper. We can build our villages. We can create those sacred spaces that say to our children, you belong here. You matter here. You can be close to us. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting to hold on to your kids. That instinct is good. It's right. It's exactly what they need from you. Not because they're going to live with you forever, but because from dependence and attachment, we grow into secure and independent beings. We go out and we emerge into the world on our own. We want that. We have a burning desire to go become our own person. And we don't want them to enter into this peer group before they really have formed who they are, because we want them to go into their peer group being able to hold on to themselves and being able to hold on to their secure attachments with their parents. We don't want them entering too quickly, too soon into that peer group where they lose themselves and they lose us in that process. So thank you so much for being here with me today. And again, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a mom or a dad who might need to hear it. Until next time, keep nurturing those roots and check out my website, innerlifeparenting.com. Take care, and I will see you again next week.